it is possible for all of us to play a role in pushing back against science denial. You may think it's impossible to talk to a conspiracy theorist or, cherry picker or, any of the folks who think they're the next Galileo, but it's not. The way to talk to them, though, is not to try to shove facts down their throat, because science denial, based on my own research, is more often about identity than it is about, reasoned thought. So, Jonathan Swift said you can't reason somebody out of something they didn't reason themselves into in the first place. So I went to a flat earth convention. How are you going to talk to them? Are you going to bring up Newton? You're going to bring up Galileo and Aristarchus? They've read that and rejected it because they distrust them, because they think that those folks are in cahoots with the devil. What are you going to say? How are you going to, make that transition? The secret to talking to a science denier is to realize that there are no magic words or magic facts that are going to convince them. The way that hardcore deniers change their mind is when they engage with somebody that they trust, who takes the time and has the patience to pull them out of it. And you do that through empathy and respect and love, really. That's how, same way you get someone out of a cult when you get right down to it. You have to let them talk, you listen, and then you ask questions like, how could that be the case? Or why do you believe that person but not this person? Or my favorite question of all, you say that your view is about evidence. So tell me what evidence could possibly convince you. And then if they can't answer that, you say, well, your view doesn't seem to be based on evidence, then it seems to be based on faith. Is that really true? So, there are ways to have these conversations. By the way, what I just did there is something called technique rebuttal, which is based on this idea that every science denier, no matter the topic, evolution, climate change, anti-vax, reasons in the same way. They cherry pick evidence, they engage in conspiracy theories, they employ illogical reasoning, they rely on fake experts, and they think that science has to be perfect. That work was done by some cognitive scientists a while back, and it fits, it works. And once you know that pattern, once you know that blueprint of reasoning, you can use that. There is no backfire effect. You're not going to make a science denier's beliefs worse. You can be patient and listen and show them respect and ask them some questions. And I'm going to be honest, it probably won't work, because that's just how virulent this information is. But I'll put it this way. If anything is going to work, that will. Because every single anecdotal account I've ever read of a hardcore denier giving up their beliefs about anti-vax or climate change is because they had a personal encounter with someone that they either trusted already or grew to trust. And my book explores many different examples of this type of conversation. And it is very, very hard to do, which is why I want more people to do it. Because, we need an army of people engaging with folks. I'll say one final thing on that question. At another level, science denial is about community. It's about feeling alienated from the normal culture and finding community against other deniers. And if we just cut off and don't have conversations with deniers, we're leaving them to the disinformation that they're getting from the other people in their community. By preserving the relationship, we are enlarging their community. If there's somebody that you love, somebody in your life who's an anti-vaxxer, don't cut them off. Have that conversation with them over time, and don't let it break the relationship, because that, if anything, that's what's going to bring them back.
To clarify, the backfire effect was this finding, and this I feel like became very widely accepted as an insight, right? That if you are too good in arguing against someone's science denial or someone's entrenched conspiracy belief, that it will actually harden their commitment to it. They will dig in deeper because of the emotional nature of their belief, right?
That's right. It'll backfire. So it will not just cause them not to give up their belief, but to hold their belief more strongly, which is perverse, right? It means that your disconfirming evidence confirms their belief. I mean, that's just backwards, right? But that idea, I mean, the New Yorker, the Atlantic, it was everywhere after the study came out in 2010. Facts don't work. We shouldn't even be talking to these people because we might be making the problem worse. Porter and Wood found that didn't exist, and then other people later as well. Now, I'll admit something here. My 2018 book, The Post-Truth, I discussed the backfire effect. And at that time, I did not know, because it had just happened, that Porter and Wood had done their work. And so that, as I discuss cognitive bias, one of the cognitive biases that I discuss in that work as a root of post-truth is the backfire effect. Turns out not to be the case. I was wrong.
You were wrong. And that study ended up not being replicable. And so there's a much more nuanced position that I hear you going for in how to talk to a science denier, which is understanding that the information deficit model is maybe not the way to go, right? The assumption that, well, if you just give them enough information, then they'll change their mind. But more so that there's understanding that the emotional component is a really big deal. And then the identification is a really big deal.
To a science denier, their beliefs are not just what they believe, it's who they are. And when you attack their belief, you're attacking them as a person. Now, so just imagine that. I mean, that explains why it's so hard, doesn't it? If you tried to talk somebody out of their religion or out of their political beliefs, you wouldn't expect to just share a few facts and then they'd say, what a fool I was, and you walk away. You would expect a tough fight, and that's what you have with a science denier. Now, the interesting thing about denial is that it exists on a spectrum. Some people are the audience for disinformation and science denial, and they haven't gone completely down the rabbit hole yet. Some of them have gone completely down the rabbit hole. Vaccines is a good topic for discussing this, because anti-vaxxers are afraid. And they love their children just as much as anyone else does. But they don't want to do the wrong thing. And so they don't know the answer. And maybe they go to their doctor, and their doctor says, I'm surprised at you for raising these questions. That's ridiculous. Bring your children and have them vaccinated. They feel resentful and they feel alienated, so they get on the internet. What do they find there? When you put in Google, do the MMR vaccines dangerous? I guarantee you somewhere on that first page is going to be an anti-vax answer to that. The way the algorithms work on social media, once you start looking for that, you're going to find more and more and more. Then where are you? Could all these people really be wrong? Maybe I'd better hold off. I mean, I'm not saying I don't believe in vaccines, just maybe I'll give it a little more time. An awful lot of people who are anti-vaxxers, that's the way they are. And think how that plays with COVID. While they're saying, I'm waiting for more evidence to come in, COVID is stalking them and killing them. So at the root of all of this is disinformation. Not misinformation, disinformation. Intentionally created lies by someone who has something to gain economically, politically, ideologically from having people believe false things about all the topics we've been discussing. And so there's a sense in which science deniers are victims and they deserve our empathy. And it's really hard to empathize with somebody who is so certain that they're right when they're wrong, and they're in your face and maybe even infecting you while they're arguing with you. It's really hard to empathize in those circumstances, and I get that. But I think there's a sense in which they are duped, and not just willfully ignorant, but duped. And I think that opens another door here, which is that I think, since I've written the book, I've thought more and more about this. We don't just need to talk to the people who are already infected with the disinformation. We need to figure out how to shut down the disinformation.